Hi, I'm Todd Gongwer, author of the book Lead for God's Sake, and I'm honored to be a part of the United States Coaches Association, and I invite you to be a part of it too. As a youth, I loved just about every sport imaginable. I played basketball, I played football, baseball, didn't play soccer because it wasn't really big in our area when I was a kid, but played just about everything I could. Grew up in Wakarusa, Indiana, small town just south of South Bend, Indiana, which is in the north part of Indiana. I watched sports on TV, so Dr. J, and I always liked the Dallas Cowboys when I was younger. So people like Roger Staubach and athletes like that were kind of heroes of mine when I was little. As I got older, I was a big college basketball fan. And in particular, being close to Notre Dame, I was a Notre Dame basketball fan, and had the opportunity to get to know the point guard on Notre Dame, which was David Rivers at the time. And he actually became a real significant mentor in my life. I didn't listen to him as much as I wish, looking back on it now, that I would have, but he was a tremendously positive impact in my life when I was probably 8th grade, freshman year, back in that time of life. I played just basketball. Actually played baseball and football and basketball through junior high, and then just decided to focus on basketball. That was my real love and passion, and played that through high school, and then actually was kind of a walk-on, red shirt, scrub player down at Florida Southern in Lakeland, Florida. I grew up in a family, being around a family business, obviously, third generation of a family business. So after college, and I only went to 2 years down at Florida Southern, but after that, I began to actually work in the family business. And then I also always had a tremendous passion for coaching, and always wanted to be a college basketball coach. And so because I had been working a lot of basketball camps at some of the colleges that were in the area, or different all-star camps, eventually ended up back at Bethel College, which is close to where I live, and volunteered as an assistant the first year. And so did that part-time while I was also working in the family business, while I was also finishing school, and then I think the next year I got married. So really was pursuing in the 90s, really were defined more by me pursuing my passions than anything else. I was trying to be the best that I could be in sports and go to the top as a coach. Never had a desire just to be an assistant coach or to coach at any other level but maybe the top, so to speak. Never had a desire to build one restaurant or a small business. It was always, I wanted to have the best of the best, and I wanted to be at the top. So it was, if I'm going to build a restaurant, I'm going to build a chain of restaurants. And so, really through the 90s, my life was best defined by the fact that I pursued everything at 100 miles an hour as passionately as I could to be the best that I could be. Unfortunately, in about 2002, I had kind of a crash and burn experience where I came to the realization that I was not healthy physically, not healthy emotionally, and really most importantly, I was not healthy relationally. And it was kind of that, during that time of recognition, that I realized that I was pursuing more than anything else the things that I was most passionate about, as opposed to why I was really created in the first place. And so, that time of my life, I kind of, and this was in 2002, I really kind of shifted gears from pursuing passions to pursuing really what I was created to be in the first place. And it was centered on relationships and people around me, and the relationship with my Creator first. I had a real, kind of a rock bottom experience where I found myself one day. I had gone out and done some businesses on my own, started some businesses on my own, kind of ventured off, and at the time I'd gotten out of coaching for a little bit, and it just seemed that nothing I had ever pursued really happened like I thought it was, or like I felt it should happen. And when I found myself suffering all those areas, I basically just, I had a point where I was crying in a bedroom and threw my hands up in the air and said, why is this happening to me? Why have I done all these things in the first place? I thought I was pursuing them for the right reasons. And I had actually a moment where my son walked in the room on me when I was like kind of going through this crisis. And I was crying. And he caught me crying. He's about 3 years old at the time, not even 3. And I just came in and saw, his daddy crying, and, walked up to me and just kind of put his little arm on me and consoled me, basically just saying, "It's okay, Daddy, it's okay." And that moment kind of, it changed a lot in my life, because it kind of opened my eyes to what the most important things in life really are. And you can succeed in anything that you're pursuing. And you can succeed at any level. You can go straight to the top of whatever. But if you do it at the expense of the things that are really important in life, you haven't succeeded. And you've never really been the best that you were designed to be. And so that moment kind of just solidified that in my mind. So, and again, it changed how I pursued everything else after that. I had to come to grips with how elusive my understanding of my own motives really were. In other words, when I get up in the morning and I say, "Why do I do what I do?" my first answer is always the easiest. Well, of course, it's for the right reasons. Of course, it's to impact these lives, or of course it's, so that I can raise money to give back to this, or I can do, all of these things that are good things. The fact of the matter is our motives are extremely elusive, and although those things are good things, many times those things are actually cover-ups. They're actually shielding what's really in our heart of hearts. And there's really this pursuit that we're going after that's more about our success and overcoming our insecurities, or gaining affirmation, or achieving status, or whatever it is. If it becomes more about those things than about the things that we say, ultimately we're pursuing them for the wrong reasons. And what I found in my life prior to that point is I was pursuing a lot of things for great reasons, and those were part of the reasons. But the fact of the matter is my relationships and in the true purpose, my reason for existence. God created me to love Him, to love others as myself. I mean, that's Jesus told us that. He said it numerous times throughout the Gospels. It's a pretty simple message, and yet we overcomplicate it because of all these other things we're pursuing. And the fact is if everything doesn't start there, eventually, like I said, you'll never be the best that you were really created to be. And so I had to learn that it was a daily process of checking my motives, and for me, praying about it and going, "God, all right, help me out here. Why am I really pursuing this?" And Proverbs tells us, the motives of a man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. Well, that indicates, that draws word right there tells you, that means we have to be intentional. We have to do something to get them out. And so it's not enough just to live your life day by day and just think, yeah, I'm doing this for the right reasons. You got to continuously check those motives. And then for me, like I said, it was praying, "God, boy, reveal to me when they're unpure and they become more about me than others." So it was a prayer thing. It was learning to embrace my position in life. We're so often focused on where we want to get to next, and this next step and this next great thing we want to accomplish. And the fact of the matter is we are where we are for a reason. Always. Always. And that may be a long season or a short season, but there's a reason we're there. And I think we're in a society right now that's full of folks that are bitter and even frustrated with where they are, to the extent that they don't give their best where they are. And I learned at that point that you've got to embrace where you are and be the best wherever you are. Ultimately, if you've got those relationships right with God and with the people closest to you, He's going to move you into where you're supposed to be. You have to continue to trust and continue to seek. And so those are, prayer, embracing position, learning to love, forgive people, serve people. The priorities. I had a couple different health issues in my life, or different times where I had to go to the hospital and get tests. I kept thinking, why are you showing me here, God? And the fact of the matter is, he was showing me that, because every time I'd get these tests back, I'd prepared myself for the news, because there was things going on with my stomach and my esophagus and all these. And I came to the realization one day that I should be living like I'm going to die in 6 months all the time. Why not? Because when you do that, it changes everything you do. It changes how you do what you do. It changes, most importantly, why you do what you do. And so, the priorities for me always go through my 6-month filter. If I wouldn't do it if I had 6 months to live, then I'm not going to do it. So whether it's a trip, whether it's a practice, whether it's a game, whether it's a certain business relationship or whatever, a meeting, it goes through that filter for me, because I believe that's how God wants us to live. And that's changed my life. And the last thing, of course, is passion. But passion follows solidifying that purpose in your life and making sure those relationships are right and all those other things are right. When all those other things that I just mentioned are right, passion becomes a pretty easy thing, to come up with every day, because you just can't help it to be excited about life when you're living that way. I was an assistant coach, and we had a number of seasons where we had a lot of tremendous success, and we had one particular instance where we had lost. And when you don't lose a lot, it becomes catastrophic. It's catastrophic anyways for most coaches, but when you're really used to winning, it becomes really difficult to lose. And so we were, like most coaches, very disappointed in our leadership on the team. And we were disappointed in the senior leadership on the team. And we were telling them we were disappointed with them. And so much so that we had gotten back on campus, and I had one of the athletes in the car with me and was driving this person home and to an apartment. And I was saying the same thing. I was going, you guys have to step up as leaders. We got to have better leadership. We got to have better leadership. And this kid who came from a great home with well-educated parents, professional parents, a great high school. He was a senior in college, a great college education, and one of the best most winningest basketball programs in the country at the time. And this kid looks at me and says, Coach, not even sure if I even understand what leadership is. That instance really hit me hard. That situation was something that I remember driving away from there going, wow, how can that be? But as I've taken the time to, over the years, I've really, that became one of my obsessions. Studying leadership became an obsession too for a long time. And as I've learned more about the subject, I look back on that. It's absolutely, I think that's probably the way it is in most colleges and in most teams across the country at any level. We talk about leadership so much that there's this mindset that, well, when we say leadership, everybody understands what we're talking about. And the fact of the matter is we all think differently about what leadership is. And we do because leadership is different. It comes from our character, it comes from influence, it comes from our, the actions that come from our character that influence others. That's leadership. Well, character is across the board different in terms of how people were brought up and what has inspired them to act and be the way that they are. So it merits taking the time to dig into every situation that you're in with a group and saying, okay, what's leadership going to be for us? Because if you don't take the time to understand, find the heart of leadership and define leadership and really take some time to design what it means to you and your team, and then refine that or align with it and refine it. If you're not willing to do that, I can guarantee you, now you get 10 different people on a team and they have 10 different views of what leadership means. They may be somewhat together, but if you haven't taken the time to really specifically define it, they'll always have some significant differences too. So that's my experience. I had felt called to write a book for quite some time, probably 3 or 4 years. I had, again, with a background in business, a background in athletics, and then I had a 5-year span where I was really able to, I was charged with leading a cultural transformation for a large organization with plants around the country. And so really was able to solidify these things that I felt God had laid on my heart in terms of a lot of the methodologies, to develop a system around leadership and a culture. So it felt like I was supposed to write, and the timing, really, again, was right. And I didn't want to write before the timing was right. And so I sat down, actually it would have been April of 2009, had the opportunity, timing seemed right. And I had all these people, a number of people whispering in my ear going, "You're going to write a book now, aren't you? Finally, you're going to write your book," And I tell people, again, I got to go back to motives, because I've been down the path of pursuing the things for the wrong reasons. And so I literally took 2 weeks and spent a ton of time in prayer and a ton of time with my family and just really trying to go, again, these motives are elusive. If it's about me becoming some big star, speaking all over the country, signing books, selling them, if that's what it's about, I'm literally praying, God, I don't want to do it, because I've been down the path of pursuing those things, and I'm not interested. Don't let me go down this path. So I'm searching this stuff out and asking him to reveal in my heart, and I came to 2 conclusions that gave me peace. And the first one was, the 6-month rule, something happens to me. I got a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. And I'm so passionate about this message that God's given me on a lot of the leadership things that I'm like, if I can write a book, they'll have it. So that was number one. Number 2 was, I had communicated to so many people in this business, and this was a regular big manufacturing company. I had a number of CEO friends, high-level influencers in business and in athletics that over the years I had dialogued with a lot about leadership stuff, but for whatever reason, they seemed to, in a lot of cases, really miss the foundation of leadership and really even miss, again, what needs to lie at the heart of hearts, this whole purpose, why you exist in the first place. And so I thought, I've got 15 or 20 of these friends that if I write a book, if for no other reason than their buddy wrote a book, they'll pick it up and read it. So I honestly thought, those 2 things, I could spend 6 months writing this thing, and I could spend, however much money of not working while I'm doing that, and it's worth it. It's worth it to get it done for that. So that's, you make a decision based on that. And so that's when I started, and I laid out this outline, all these methodologies of how I thought, because of what I'd been teaching and I felt, was supposed to be. And 2 weeks went by as I'm trying to write this thing, and it was just terrible. Nobody would have read it. I didn't want to even review it. I was like, I can't even edit this stuff. It's so bad. And so, it's just like, it was nothing. There was no substance to it, heart-wise. And so I was frustrated. And I actually even had a day where I lost all my work on a computer, and I was just like, oh. And felt God kind of telling me, you're supposed to write this thing, start over with a short story. And even to the point of title as the first line, start over with a short story. I've read a lot of leadership books, over 400 leadership books in my life. Less than 10 of them are probably fiction. I'm not a big fiction fan. I haven't read a lot of fiction, let alone do I have any clue how to write a story, a fiction story. Never took a class on it in college. So writing a short story to me was, okay, I can do this 2 pages, right? I can write a 2-page story. And that's honestly what I thought I was going to do. And so I started this short story without knowing where it was going, and this thing just started pouring out. And for the next 10 weeks, it just came out every time I sat down. It came out as fast as I could type. And it was really cool because the motives, when you commit to doing things for the right reasons and maintaining some of those things, some of the priorities and things in the right, you get tested. And there were so many times that my son, my daughter would come into my office. You know, my office is my house, and my daughter would come downstairs, and I'm in the middle, you know, and Daddy, will you please come and tickle me? You know, and it's like, you know, your first reaction is, whatever, you know, I got to finish this, you know, and then she's like, Daddy, you know, and then you get this, why are you doing this? Why? And it's almost like, if you're doing it for the right reasons, it'll take care of itself. Get up and play with your kid. And so, you know, countless times, I worked a basketball camp during the time that I was writing it, where I went away for like 4 or 5 days. Every day I got up in the morning, took my son to camp and worked the camp actually, and then came home in the afternoons. We went on a family vacation during that time, where I took my 2 kids. And I mean, there was a number of things that I was coaching and doing with my family during that 10 weeks. And so when I look back on it, I'm like, how did it get finished? And again, I'll go back to saying, I mean, God just poured it through my heart. And looking back on it, I'm just like, it's amazing to me how he did it. But he certainly, I had a lot of help. So I want so bad to stay 100% aligned with whatever it is that God wants for it. And so, honestly, if it sells 20,000 copies, and you know, I mean, it has already been a glaring success. If I die tomorrow, you know, if I'm some reason can't do anything else tomorrow, I'd look and go, thank you, God, because what you did is you impacted a lot of lives, and you did an amazing work through that whole experience. And so really, you know, all the time I get asked, oh, this has got to be a movie. You've got to do this movie. When are you writing the next book? Where's the workbook? When are you going to start doing workshops? I need a newsletter. You know, I mean, all these different things that I get asked to do right now, and I'm trying to do, you know, as much as I can. But ultimately, I want to have an unbelievably healthy marriage and just love my wife like I'm supposed to. I want to have unbelievably healthy kids and love them exactly like I'm supposed to, and give them what they're supposed to get from a dad. And I have brothers and parents and sisters-in-laws, and I mean, you know, I have a lot of family, a lot of friends around me that I want those relationships to be healthy. I want to keep mentoring a lot of the guys that I'm mentoring right now. So whatever happens, it cannot happen at the expense of all those things I just talked about. And I won't let it save this tape. Because if you ever see me starting to go down that path, send it to me and say, Todd, sure you're getting time with your family. But I can just give one piece of advice to coaches. It is, ask yourself why you do what you do daily. Get the answer. Make sure and then check yourself. Because I can guarantee you, 99% of the coaches out there, they're going to give the right answer. I'm doing this for the kids. I'm doing this because I'm passionate about helping these kids become young men or young women. I want them to be contributors to society. And I know, and 99% of them are right when they're speaking truth when they're saying that. The fact of the matter is you've heard the saying, your perception is your reality. Ask your athletes. Ask your athletes why they think you do what you do. Because their perception, even though you're putting them through tough times, if you have connected with them and you have developed the kind of relationship that you actually should develop with every athlete that is put in your path, even when times get tough, in their heart of hearts, they will know that you still are really doing this because you care about me and you love me. Every once in a while, there's a kid that you really have to be tough on, and they're not going to get it. But if 80% of your kids come back to you, and if you do a blind survey or have your assistant coaches help you or whatever, if 80% of them come back and go, you want to win, that's number one priority. Recheck yourself again. Yeah, that's a great question, because you got a world full of coaches out there, youth coaches, not just college coaches, not just school coaches, but coaches out there in the youth. And it's a battle for all of us. I'm one of them. I'm coaching my 10-year-old son in AAU and in, and it's a battle to make sure you keep doing what you're doing for the right reasons. And because it's really easy to get too competitive and lose sight of what you're really supposed to be focused on.